Okay, this is just a short video on how the Bible uses what seems to be boring stuff to tell you some of the most important stuff. Boy, I don't even know how to begin this. I'm in a real state of shock. As you can see, I'm using the NASB translation here, but you can use anything else. This looks like a really boring passage about how the Levite sons of Aaron and the other Levites got their inheritance for their cities. And it takes a lot of explaining to go through this. You have to understand how the Levites came about, and the reason I got into this some years back was because there's all this debate about whether the Exodus is valid and when it happened and blah, blah, blah. And I dealt with that some years ago, but I ended up having to deal with it again because stupid Harold Camping, who invented all of his numbers in order to cover up his past mistakes, made a bunch of stupid arguments about the sons of Kohath, proving that he didn't give a flip about what the Bible really says, and he invented all this God is a black widow timeline, killing off the fathers in the year that their sons were born. And you'll see in my Why the Rapture video where I did a rebuttal to that in Camping Timeline Gaffes 2 doc, which is a link in the Why the Rapture video description that's on my right now on my the feature video on my channel page in YouTube. Anyway, the point is that when I do something like this, because I'm being critical, okay, I'm just as critical of myself as I am of somebody else. So after I come up with something like this, where I criticize, in this case, a famous teacher, which is not what I like to do, I go back and say, okay, did I really do it right? Did I do my homework enough? It's not fair to be critical of somebody else, especially if I screwed up too. So I was investigating what I wrote. And while doing that, I had written that, this thing here is based on a curse that's right here in Genesis 49. Okay, specifically the curse against Levi and Simeon. Okay, so this is the curse that gave rise to the passage you're seeing in front of you at the top window on Joshua. Alright, it's how God cursed Levi and then put Levi back into the inheritance via assigning them cities, because they were to be the priestly tribes, so they have to be dispersed throughout Israel. Well, here's the curse that predicted their dispersal. See, right here. I will disperse them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. That's here in this lower window. In the upper window, in Joshua 21, you're seeing how that was fulfilled. Okay? Now, there's a lot more to it than that. This is a very complicated thread that runs throughout the Old Testament, specifically in Deuteronomy and Numbers, and in Leviticus. But the point I'm trying to make here is, A, this text up here in Joshua 21 is pretty boring, isn't it? Oh, they got 13 cities here, and 10 cities here, and here are the names of the cities, and here are the tribes where they got them, blah, 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 and put you to sleep. Okay, but here, this is the prophecy being fulfilled that this text is explaining. This text that's so boring is explaining Jacob's prophecy back here in Genesis 49. That's the prophecy that Joshua 21 is talking to. Alright, that's now outlined there in blue. The two blue sections tie to each other. In fact, the whole of Joshua 21 is tying to Genesis 49:7. How it got done. Now, I wouldn't have known that if I weren't busy writing about how wrong Harold Camping is. And guess what I just learned like 5 minutes ago? I need to kill myself. Genesis 49 is metered in Hebrew. It's metered. Just like all the other things I've been talking about with the meter. I'm sorry if I'm yelling. I need to kill myself. The whole chapter is a prophecy about the future. See, I will tell yourselves what's going to happen. Okay, it's metered in Hebrew, using the same Hebrew meter that Psalm 90 uses. Well, hello, Jacob lived before Moses. And Moses, I just learned this because of Harold Camping's failure. Moses' meter in Psalm 90 is based on the meter of the days in Genesis 7 and 8. So that precedes everybody. And not only that, but Psalm 90's meter is based on the meter in Genesis 49 here. So guess what Brainout has to do? I got to go back to the drawing board and make sure what I said. I mean, I know it's right, but it's not right enough. And make sure what I said about the meter takes into account the two precedenting meters of Genesis 7 and 8, which are in days. The text itself, as far as I know, I got to go back and look at it. I don't think the text is metered, but the days are. The days are the basis for Moses' meter in Psalm 90. But also, I could kill myself. The meter is in Genesis 49. The whole chapter is metered, or nearly all of it. I have to figure it out now. What is the meter in Genesis 49, which of course is a prophecy, and therefore is metered? And to see how Moses plays off both Genesis 7 and 8, and plays off Genesis 49, because that's what he's doing. And honey, that's going to take me a good year. So if you don't hear much from me between now and the next time I make a video, that's why. And I got a lot of work to do, and God just keeps rolling this stuff out based on other people's arguments. I discovered the thing about Paul metering his Greek in Ephesians 1, 3 through 14 in his prayer to Daniel 9's prayer. Paul's using 434 syllables. He's metering exactly to Daniel 9, 24 and 25. I discovered that because 1689 Baptists and I got into an argument about what does it mean, the election of Christ. And now I'm learning this based on Harold Camping's failure. God is orchestrating my life to use somebody else's failure or problem or misinterpretation to show me more verses where this Hebrew metering occurs. I need to kill myself, but I can't do that. I got to stay alive. So it's up to God how he's going to keep me alive so I can document this. So if I die, guys, you know something now. I mean, what if I get cattywampus with God and I sin the sin unto death and he has to kill me? Okay, fine. Then you guys know something about this. You can research the meter in Genesis 49 and Genesis 7 and 8 to see how Psalm 90's meter ties back to it. In case I die, you know to do this. That's it. I'm signing off now. I am in such a state of shock I can't breathe. This is just a short video idea that I might pursue later on how the Bible is arrogantly mistranslated. By accident, I was getting ready to do something else and I happened upon 1 Thessalonians 1:3. And I'm looking at the Greek and I'm looking at the translations and thinking, wow, man sure wants to glorify himself. I mean, let's see, you guys don't know the Greek. Okay, look at the NIV there. You're going to have to download the JPG to see it well. This is from BibleWorks. This is what I use every day. It's a tool that pastors use. I bought this at seminary, and you can buy it online at BibleWorks.com. It compares all the translations to the original language text, and then at the bottom, as you can see, you can configure it to show the lexicons. There are many lexicons. I'm just showing one of them. Thayer. But notice here how if you just compare the NIV, which actually gets it more right to the Greek than the other translations you're seeing, how legalistic the other translations are compared to the NIV. Okay? I underlined in pink what the NIV figured out from the Greek that the other guys didn't. So it's important always to compare translations, because every once in a while, every translation is done by a translation committee. And there's going to be one good egg in that translation group. And there's going to be like 99 bad eggs. And the 99, of course, are the majority, so they always get the vote. And so you get a Bible that's crap in English. But every once in a while, the good guy who knows what the translation really means manages to get his oar in. And that's what happened here in 1 Thessalonians 1:3 with the NIV. You got, we continually remember before our God your and Father your work. That's not really even right. Produced by faith. At least they got that much in. It's the faith producing the work. Is what the Greek says. To ergo tis pisteus. Alright? That's the faith producing the work. It's the work of the faith doing the job. It's not their work doing the faith. It's the faith doing the work. It ties back to James. Paul is tying to James here, James 2 in particular. And it's the faith doing the work. That's a main theme of Paul's. That's what he's talking about in Romans 8. I mean, he talks about it all the time. Faith does the work. All right? James and Paul were really close. So this was a doctrine that they both had in common. And it's like it's a reference to James as the Word of God, really. I don't know how else you can talk about it. But the point I'm trying to make here is your work produced by, not by you, but by the faith. Faith means doctrine. Pisteos here in the genitive, means doctrine. Okay, the Bible in your head is producing the work. Your labor prompted by. See, he's translating the genitives, which is totally valid. NIV is translating the genitives as verbs, because it is. The genitive, case endings have a verbal force. And your labor prompted by love, not you doing the loving prompting you to have the labor. That's what motivates you, and that ties to the love of Christ compels us. Compel isn't the right translation either. It's soon echo. I think it's in 2 Corinthians 5:14. If not, it'll be the right verse will be on the screen. And your endurance inspired by elpidos, which is in the genitive, elpis. Hope is really not hope, it's confidence. It's a very pregnant Greek word in Greek literature, and Paul uses it a lot. Inspired by, prompted by, produced by. Not you doing the work. Not you doing the loving, but the loving inspiring you. The loving, the hope, the confidence in Him. The merit is in Him, okay? I mean, this is an example of how evil Christianity is. They reverse what the Bible says in translation. So now look at the KJV and all the other translations that are showing. I've got like 100 of them. Look it up. Like the KJV. Remembering without ceasing your work of faith, your labor of love, your patience of hope.
Yeah, how wonderful you are and how little God is. See why I don't believe in Bible translations? They suck. But every once in a while, a good translator gets to have his voice heard. And that's what happened here with the NIV. They also do it right in some of the womb verses. The NIV is very courageous sometimes. They get it right that life begins at birth. The NIV does in some verses like Isaiah 44:2. Well, Louis Sagan gets that right too. Luke 1:15, and I want to say Galatians 4 something. I'll put it on the screen. And you need to know that because Paul's making a play on how life begins at birth in Galatians 4:19. How eager he is waiting for Christ to be born in them. In other words, they're born again, but Christ is not born in them. And if you don't know that life begins at birth, you don't get the wordplay. Anyway, I know this is too complicated a video. I'm going to try to dumb it down in later videos, but for right now, just know that this is something I'm working on. Hi, this is a quick addendum to the 1 Thessalonians 1:3 video about subjective and objective genitive. You can't find the teaching on this in Christendom. You have to look in Greek classical, among the Greek classical teachings, etc., to find it because it's about Greek. It's technical about Greek. My pastor spent about 2 years explaining it from about the year 2000 to 2002. So if you're interested, you could just order the live Bible classes on MP3. They don't charge for money and they don't ask you for money. They don't believe in that. Ever. Very strict. We didn't even have an offering plate for a while. So you can get those because I just don't have any other place I can recommend to you. You might try also going to Tufts at Perseus and looking up some stuff in this, but apparently there's not a lot said about it anymore, but it's an extremely important rhetorical style in the Bible, used an awful lot. There are basically 3 kinds of genitive in this genre. The subjective genitive, where the object, or the noun in the genitive case, is doing the action of the noun that it references. Sometimes the sometimes the participle used as a noun. Then there's the objective genitive, where the item in the genitive case is the object of the verbal action in the noun or verbal noun or participle, etc. There's a third one called the plenary genitive, which encompasses both meanings at once. And in Greek drama, you're only allowed to use one or the other meaning, but you can use the plenary. So the plenary will be even more dramatic, and it works like a circle. this was a major thing in my spiritual life to learn this. It completely changed my spiritual life. I learned about it, I want to say, about 8 years ago. And it just struck me that it was a circle. And back in 1977, my pastor had taught about it with respect to the Greek in Romans 5:5, which he also revisits in the year 2000, so you don't have to go all the way back to 1977 to hear all the Romans exegesis. It's really important to get this. It is possibly, well, it's hard to say this. It's among the most important Greek geek things you can learn. The entire plan of God is illustrated by the use of the subjective, objective, and plenary genitive. Romans 5:5 uses it, Ephesians 3:15 through 19 uses it. He agape tou theo is exactly what occupied my pastor's time from the year 2000 to 2002, because he had discovered something he'd been looking for 50 years. What is the chief attribute or attribute sorter of God? Because that's been a big debate in theology for centuries. And it's the love of God. Well, to your average Calvinist, that's not going to sound right. All right? But the sovereignty chooses to love first. And there are lots of verses on that, and he spent 2 years finding them all. It's a divine circle. I did the divine physics videos in part inspired by this. All right? I mean, it turned me on to Isaiah 53. It turned me on to the whole sweep of how God's attributes work. Sovereign, he chooses to love. I mean, you have to think about this. God wills. Okay, how does he will? He can will to hate if he wanted to, or he can will to love. If he willed to hate, he'd be miserable. Okay, and will is absolute. So it's either absolute love or absolute hate. If absolute hate, he wouldn't be God anymore, and of course we wouldn't be here. So that leaves absolute love. And I spent a lot of time on my webpages plotting all that out, because I think it's the theological discovery of the century. This whole thing of subjective, objective, genitive, and love is the integrity of God, as my pastor shouted on May 7th, 2000. That was a big red letter day in history, I'm sorry. I wish it was somebody else's pastor so I could say it and nobody would think I was being self-serving. But I never met the guy. He doesn't know me. I don't, really talk to anybody at the church. I've known a few of them over the years, but I keep to myself. So pretend I'm not under him. All right? This is important. So all I can say is if you never learn any Greek but this, learn it.